Hello and welcome to episode number 84 of the Maximizing E-commerce podcast. My name is Kevin, your host, and I'm super excited that you're here today because I love talking about selling on Amazon's international marketplaces. I truly think it is one of the most overlooked ways to grow your business. And if you already understand how to sell on Amazon, it can be a great way to grow your business. And a lot of times for a lot of folks, that low-hanging fruit is places like Canada, in the UK, just because they're English speaking. Australia, maybe the sales are a little, definitely the sales are significantly less in Australia. I would give it a long-term, put your flag in the ground type of thing to eventually get into Australia. But where I think a lot of times we shy away is some of those other countries where all of a sudden they're not using the same words we use. It's a different language, when you start getting into Germany and, Italy and France and Spain and the Netherlands and Japan, and you can just fill in the blank of the foreign language marketplaces. And what I've come to learn from personal experience is sometimes it can be hard finding, translations. Like, cause how do you know, like, does this person know what they're doing? Like, maybe they're a translation service. And I used to think it was great just to use any translation service as long as they could prove themselves to be reputable, but maybe they're good at legal translations, like stuff that the court needs translated in a certain way. But maybe you as a seller don't need things transferred quite as literally as a court would. So maybe the context is different. So just someone that understands that and how Amazon works, because the chassis of how Amazon works is the same pretty much everywhere. But when you go into other marketplaces, the language is different. So to have a discussion about those foreign language marketplaces and how that all works out and talk about some of the opportunities with selling international marketplaces, I'm excited to bring on a guest who is very passionate about languages. She speaks tons of languages and she knows her stuff when it comes to e-commerce and Amazon and how that works in different cultures. And she gives some very good examples. So let's go ahead and kick it into this interview. All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation there with Jana. Jana really knows her stuff she's very passionate about languages and things like that, which is awesome. And she speaks so many languages. I mean, I sometimes I barely speak English, but anyway, that was a good conversation there. And I'm really glad that she shared her knowledge there. So if you're thinking about foreign language, translations, I would definitely recommend checking her out. And I'm actually going to get some of my listings checked out by her and her team, ones that were already done for me, just to give them a little bit of a tune-up, just to make sure that they're as accurate as they should be for the Amazon marketplace. So if you were thinking about getting into international marketplaces and you want to know, like, what are those steps I would need to do? Well, you can head on over to internationalchecklist.com. I'll send you a checklist. It's totally free. It's kind of more of a mini guide, but it'll walk you through step by step the steps you would need to do to get started in international marketplaces, regardless of whether you're looking at, getting into someplace like Germany or someplace like Canada or Australia, just at least give you the general process. So definitely consider going into some of Amazon's international marketplaces if you're not there already. And the nice thing is the way this world works with technology and the ability to connect with people all over the world and subject matter experts that don't necessarily have to be just down the street from you. We have access to a wealth of knowledge. And so there's no reason to let just the fact people are speaking a different language prevent you from getting into some of these other marketplaces. So definitely check out Jana and check out internationalchecklist.com. And I wish you the best in your e-commerce journey. Take care. All right. So as you're expanding into other marketplaces, sometimes it could be easy to think about Canada and UK and maybe Australia, at least if you're like me and you're an English speaker in the US. But then when you start looking at, there's all these other places you can go to with huge populations, and Amazon has, all these prime customers with their customer or their credit card on file, I should say. The intimidating part is, what do you do when they're speaking another language? So to get into that, I'm excited to have a discussion on foreign language marketplaces and many of the opportunities as you're expanding outside of the US and some of the English-speaking marketplaces with Jana Krekic from Wild Tea Translations. So Jana, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for having me. I was really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think you and I both have kind of a expander heart and mind of helping people expand into other marketplaces. Now, I tend to focus a lot on Canada and the UK just because, well, for me, it's pretty easy because, you just kind of copy and paste the listing and make a couple changes
Right.
here or there. But when you start getting into some other countries, like you start realizing it's not that simple. So just to help everybody understand, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into the world of translations because you focus on Amazon sellers, right?
Right, exactly. So we focus solely on Amazon sellers. We basically I founded the company 3 years ago, and at that point we were doing e-commerce translation because I was previously employed in one of the biggest e-commerces in Europe. I was
Hmm.
their chief operations officer, and they had 400 employees across 12 different countries. They were opening online web shops like the whole time. It was an amazing experience. I was working there for 8 years, and this is how also I got in touch with Amazon. They were also like 10 years ago. This is how I first found out about like what's a buy box, in the first place.
Right, right,
And
right.
they were selling hundred thousands of products on Amazon. So there was always like an interest
They had
of mine.
100,000 SKUs.
Yes, they had
Oh,
hundred
wow.
thousand SKUs. They were insane. I mean, they had like over 2 million products on their webpage. So they were pretty serious and pretty big.
Oh, wow.
uh yeah, insane. They're not now, they're not that big, but 10 years ago they were one of the biggest e-commerces out there.
Uh-huh.
And They were selling cell phone gadget equipment, basically all gadgets out there. They kind of
Right.
expanded even to the car tires and whatever not. And this is like, and I was very interested in Amazon at that point, and we were doing Google Translate, of course, because there were too many products. And then,
Sure.
like, as a pilot project, because nobody actually cared about Amazon as a company, they were focused more on their main sales channels through their website. And yeah, basically on the website was the main sales channel, but they were doing also other platforms. But Amazon was not interesting for them because I didn't think I didn't have, I think, enough competent people to lead that. So I decided to take this Amazon account as like my playground, and to see what we could do, since we're like expanding international marketplaces. And then for 10 products, I remember I changed and I hired some of the translators from our team to do regular translation. So without keywords at all, but just to make it sound more logical to a person reading that. And that actually got some results. We got 20% increase in sales just because they were translated nicely to a foreign language. And
So
then,
you mean like it
yeah,
was more in the context of how people would
it was,
talk in that
yes.
language? Because sometimes there's some differences, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was not like a machine translation. The sentences actually made a lot of sense. And this was done like localized as well. So, it's very important. And what people seem not to focus on is that a lot of, all countries have different cultures. And if you have like an English idiom, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have absolutely the same idiom in German. So if you
Mm.
were to translate something, you would have like mumbo jumbo, basically another language,
Right,
not
right,
an
right.
idiom, which makes sense. So we kind of tweaked that, and then after that, I started doing the keyword research, and that helped like increase the sales to 40 to 50% depending on the countries. And I thought like, wow, this was actually very easy because it all makes perfect sense because the keywords you're using also in your PPC campaigns. And then when I quit my job, I decided I want to do something on my own. I didn't want to work for anybody else. And I have a background in languages. I'm a translator myself, actually. I speak 5 languages, and I went to
Oh, wow.
school and got bachelor's and master's, and that's my passion. And my passion has also been e-commerce. So I decided to kind of put like those two together, and to get like a translation agency that will do e-commerce stuff for all other digital entrepreneurs. We did that for about a couple of months, also Amazon translations as well. And then I just thought that it would be a really good idea to kind of niche down to Amazon translations only, since I could train people. I had enough knowledge, and I have some team members already who are working with me at the company, and we could make internal training, and we could really really focus on creating really good Amazon dedicated translators. And that turned out to be a very good decision, actually. Since we did niche down, and then we started like really small. About 2.5 years ago, we did our first listings, and it was only 3-4 listings every month. And I remember when I would get an email, I would be like, oh my god, like we got an email. And now we do more than 1,500 listings every month. So we've
Oh,
scaled
wow.
immensely. Yeah, and that's also to blame Amazon, of course, because they push people to selling internationally. Unfortunately, they had that launch program, which was very bad. They would use Amazon would tell you, use our Launchpad program. We were going to translate everything for free, and then when you hear that Amazon wants to do something for free for you, it it definitely costs you more than having something free and not having anything which is high quality coming from Amazon for a price of zero, right?
Right.
Dollars. So basically, a lot of people had problems with that because they were actually just given Google Translate, which was proofread by a human. And I would also like to address this problem because this is something that people still do. They would do the Google Translate, and then they would hire somebody on Fiverr to proofread the machine translation. And of course, the proofreaders are not paid as much as the real translation. So this person is not going to rewrite the whole text for you. They're just gonna put out fires in your text and be like, okay, we'll make it work. But still, this text was going to probably sound horrible on the target language. And a lot of times, the clients come to us and we give you a free feedback on your already translated listings, and none of those were ever good. So none of those, like the Google Translation or Google Translate plus human proofread ones, were good. They always sound funny. They would always sometimes you would have like two bullets perfectly written, and third bullet would be just complete nonsense.
Okay.
And of course, you don't have any keywords. Google Translate doesn't do your keyword research, nor does a random Fiverr translator do. So you really have to have the translators that know Amazon. And if you're thinking about hiring a translator and you think like, oh, I have like this perfect translator, she is magician in like legal field or expertise in medical translation field, that's not the same. It's like going to I don't know, like if you want to get little breast implants and you go to the dentist, it's like not the
Mm.
same type of doctor. So this is like not the same type of translator because you have to work with those who either have copywriting experience or marketing experiences, because they have to make a really good sales copy. A really good Amazon translator would focus on the text that you give them, but it's not going to be translated 100% the same as it is in the original, because that's why you have to, because of the localization. If you localize a text, it's not 100% the same. And then a lot of people would just go and put this new text in Google Translate. They said, what is this? This is completely wrong. This is not my text. It's not, but it is the same, but it probably is a little bit different in terms of like what style do you want or who's your audience. And the problem is that people still use Google Translate for quality check, and this is absolutely horrible. Google Translate can definitely help you, I don't know, maybe translate the washing instruction for the washing machine or figure out how your vacuum cleaner works, but it's
Hmm.
not going to make any sales in listings because you have to have keywords in your listings. And I cannot stress this enough. Like keywords are going to sell your product. Even though if you don't have like the premium translation, you still have to have keywords. So whatever you're doing, I would always invest in a really good keyword research.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tools you could use for keyword research, and you could give that to a translator and say, "Hey, here's
Yeah.
like if you did like a reverse ASIN search in like Helium 10, for example, you could do that." But there is a lot to be said for what you said there about like the machine translation and whatnot. So like, I'll admit I've had Amazon translate many of my listings, and I even had a rep from Amazon later on admit, "Yeah, we didn't." We didn't have as much success out of those as we had thought. And at least he was honest. At least he was honest.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is a few episodes back, I had on a gentleman named John Kant who helps people expand into
Oh, I know. To
Japan.
Japan. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
John.
good
Yeah.
guy. And
Right. Yeah.
he speaks Japanese. His wife is from Japan, so like they offered to take a look at some of my listings. He's like, dude,
Yeah, I
like
know.
the spacing is off. Like a Japanese person's gonna look at this and say, what is this? And so what's interesting too is, when you do a Google Translate, you don't the machines miss things, and we've all seen it probably the opposite way. So if you're looking at a listing and it's in English, you can tell if a non-English speaker translated it or if a
Yeah,
machine did. Like you just kind of know, or you read an article on
exactly.
the internet and it just doesn't quite like it. makes sense, but it's just off. And so how much
Right,
trust do you put
right.
in that?
And you know what's very interesting? Google Translate is not going to know what sort of metrical system is used in the other country. For instance, if you want
Oh,
to go to Canada and like you're from the US, you have everything in inches, right? But
mm-hmm.
Canadians, they use centimeters. So, you know, I mean, they do understand inches, of course, as the rest of the world does, but
Right.
they
Probably
use
better than
centimeters.
Americans understand
Yeah, but
centimeters.
I mean, still, you know, it's something that, you know, probably a lot of Americans don't even know. And your Google Translate is definitely not going to know that, you know.
Mm.
And for instance, like in French language, it's very like when you write the bullets or when you write your sentence, they have this like thing where you write a sentence and then you have space and then you put a dot or exclamation point or question mark. And if you put it like right after the last word, it's considered like as a grammar mistake. So this is something that kind of is typical for French, for instance.
Okay.
And it's gonna be like very kind of weird for a native French person to see that. I mean, they probably don't mind, but they will be pretty happy to see that you've used the space after the last word in the sentence. As well as like Germans, they use a lot of compound words. That's
Mm.
basically, you know, like you can express a whole sentence with like one big chunky
Right.
compound word in German. And a lot of the keywords are actually compound words. And interesting that you mentioned helium-10 because we also use that. But there is a problem with the helium-10 when doing the keyword research for the German language because
Okay.
the tool is set by default to have two words results for the long tail keywords. So
Ah,
when
okay.
you open it, it says word count 2. So the problem with the German is, as I mentioned, like you have these compound words, which are all one word, not two words.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to use, I don't know, like a makeup brush kit or something, you would get only the results of the keywords, which are two words or more. You're not going to get those single keywords. And you will think, oh, okay, here are all the keywords. This is everything what my competitors are doing. I've covered everything. Unless you, I mean, but you haven't, right? Because you're missing out on the compound keywords. So if you're doing helium-10 keyword research, do the word count number 2 as set by default, and then go back and put number 1 there so you can get to see the compound word, which you would
Mm.
not get in the word count, which is set as number 2. So that's a problem. I mean, they didn't build helium-10 for, you know, they customized it for German
Right,
language,
right, right, right.
unfortunately. But like for all other languages, it works fine. But this is what we've noticed, and a lot of people would miss out on very, you know, uh, very highly searched volume keywords, and those compound words are highly searched volume keywords, as they are the usual words they would look for when looking for a product. They would type those in, you know, and a lot of times people would definitely they would, I think, miss like probably in top 50 keywords, like I guess like 10 of them are surely compound words. So that's a lot.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Because yeah, it's definitely a very precise language, I guess would be the way to
Yes,
describe
very,
German.
very precise. Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like a lot of, think about like things that are very engineered that come out of German.
Yeah.
It's, it's just the mindset of the culture. And so like the language is very precise. Whereas Spanish, for example, one thing I've come to learn is, I grew up in Texas. I took Spanish for 4 years in junior high and high school. Most of what I really can probably speak is slang. That's probably more Mexican slang from
Mm-hmm.
working in like kitchens and restaurants and
Right, right.
high school and college. And I moved to Florida, and people are from like either the Caribbean or South America, or there is a more diverse Spanish speaking audience. And
Yes.
sometimes I would use
Yes.
words and either they were
Right.
offensive or they had no idea what I was saying. So,
Yeah. It's very tricky with Spanish because there is Spanish from Cuba, from
right.
like Peru, from Mexico. There are like so many different versions of Spanish, and it's different than the one in Europe as well. You have
Mm-hmm.
to have different translators for that. Like if you want to hire like someone, it's like, you know, hiring an American speaker to kind of try to do British English. You know, you're gonna
Mm,
probably not be 100% correct, and
right.
you're not going to, you know, sound very much British to the British audience. So don't try to mix, and like don't try to translations don't cost a lot of money. PPC costs a lot of money. Videos, photography, A plus. We're talking about a couple of $1,000s here. And when we're talking about your product and your translations, it's like, if you want to do like one product to 5 languages, it's going to be probably under 500 euros. And that's a one-time only fee. So don't be cheap and don't like save on translations, because they can really help you increase your sales. Of course, if you've done like the rest of the work correctly, it's basically one very important piece of this whole Amazon puzzle. And this is what also you can do. And you mentioned Germany, and it's really interesting how their style of the writing and overall style of the product and sales copy is exactly what you said. It's like very precise. They're very straightforward. They want to see the benefits. Like, don't give me the sweet talking about your product, like sugar coating, whatever, telling me your product is amazing. Like, they will be the judge of that. They hate that. And it's very important to know that Germany, from all international marketplaces, gives out the most refunds. So if they see that this listing is something not something that they expected, or something that they thought it was like maybe different or presented wrongly to them, they would think it's something else, and then they would just kind of return it. And one of my favorite examples is this espresso cup that we did. So the US listing says like something like, my grandma used to, I don't know, drink this in front of her fireplace, keep her fingers warm. And that's like how the bullet goes. And in German, it's translated with thermal isolated glass, dot. That's it. And then it goes like explaining the benefits of this cup. And then the second bullet is also like some wordplay, right? And in German, it says like, it says something like how functional this is. Like, it can fit like on a shelf. It's not bigger than your finger. It's it's like benefits, and like show me like the qualities of your product very shortly in bullets. And people do not write, please, like, do not write novels in bullets. That's completely wrong. And I know that we have 499 characters, but I would always suggest not to maximize on that. I would just like always stuck with the, key things, like the beginning of the bullets, just like your key benefits, explain them in like 2 sentences, like somewhere around like 300 characters per bullet, then moving on. And also there's, of course, the thing that where they say like a first 1,000 characters gets indexed. I mean, this has never been 100% proven in practice, but I would always, keep the bullets shorter than, just really extending them for too long. And I mean, you should definitely go on into storytelling in A plus content. Of course, this depends on the product. I mean, if you're selling like a kid's teddy bear, of course, you're going to have like a different sort of language, but you should be very, very careful. And you have to know like where is the limits to this. Like, you have to be very careful when addressing to German audience. And as I said, like a lot of that emotional talk, and like I remember we were doing translations for one payment service provider, Payoneer, and they had like this big billboard, and they said like, we are humbled because of our customer care system that you're using, blah blah. And in Germany, you cannot say like humble for customer service, because it doesn't sound professional. It's like humble customer service for them, it means like you are amateurs. It give you that 100% professional certificate, and other similar stuff like that. It's like really, really unique marketplace. And I would never recommend people using sentences such as like buy it now, or our amazing product, and just overboarding yourself that much, like in that listing, is definitely not a right way to go and place the product on the German marketplace. You might work from some others, but the Germans are very precise, straightforward, like straight to business. Show me the benefits, and don't praise your product to me that much. I will leave the review and then tell you about it. So that's something which is really important for the German marketplace.
Now, we've talked a lot about German, so I have kind of a theory here. Are you saying, is Germany kind of becoming one of the most popular marketplaces for people to get translations right now?
You know what? Definitely Germany is the biggest marketplace in Europe. It's bigger than the UK. A lot of people think it's the UK, but it's not. And I would say that for the US sellers, they would always go to the UK because of the language barrier, of course.
Right.
I would still always suggest to do the keyword research as well. So you kind of optimize your listings for the UK marketplace. Because if you compare the two lists of US and UK keywords, they're not going to be 100% the same. There'll be maybe 80%, but maybe in those 20%, you have some like hidden golden keywords that you will use on the UK marketplace. But definitely, apart from the UK, Germany is number one when expanding internationally. And I think that Germany is going to definitely be like forever on the throne after Brexit and after
Right.
England leaves Europe, because I mean sellers have been just they've been very scared about what's going to happen with England, what's going to happen with their inventory. Now you're not going to be able to send and ship the inventory like from the UK to the rest of the Europe. You'll have to have your inventory. For instance, a lot of people are that's why they're moving to Germany. And Germany is strategically in a really good place in Europe. It's kind of center Europe, so it's really good for delivery of all the packages. So I just definitely think that I don't think there's a country that's going to dethrone Germany anytime soon. And by UK leaving, they kind of just kind of left it a lot for definitely for Germany to become even more popular marketplace.
Yeah, and the reason I was asking the question about Germany is because, and to your point, you alluded to Brexit happening. So,
yeah,
for those who aren't familiar, as we record this, the plan is on January 1st, 2021. The trade deals, even though the UK has already left Brexit, the trade deals are still in place. So what will happen is you can't just have goods cross the border the same way they can now. Like right now, it's almost like sending something from Florida to North Carolina. Not quite that simple, but it's almost that simple.
Yeah.
And shipping it from the UK to Germany. Come January 1st, the plan is that's not going to happen. And it's looking like it's 100% the case. So what'll happen is you got to have a new base of operations for the rest of Europe. And Germany seems to make the most sense for a lot of the things you talked about, like the location. If you're doing sea shipping, there are seaports there. It's not a landlocked country. So, I mean, it's a good location. And the VAT seems to be pretty favorable from what I can tell too. So
yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, now it's a little bit too late for that, but this year, with the pandemics starting in March, for instance, April, Germany decided to decrease VAT to 17% instead of 21 to the rest of this year. And maybe this also continues to next year. Like, who knows? But this is what they really try to make themselves more approachable and easier to access to, because German VAT can be a nightmare. But I mean, if you hire a VAT agency knows what they're doing, it's not going to be a nightmare. But it's definitely going to be something that you're going to wait for a couple of months, definitely.
Yeah, and I think probably for a lot of people, if they're saying to themselves, like, okay, I'm going to have to create a new base of operations, essentially have two locations of inventory, that you really got to make sure it works in the foreign language one. So that's why I'm assuming a lot of people are going to Germany, because if they're going to use Germany to import into, get a VAT number, an EORI number, which allows people to import into that country, then they're going to need to make sure it's all working. So if someone was kind of on the fence of like, well, I've already got listings that seem to be converting, what have you seen as the benefit of someone? And I know it's always, it depends on the product and the market and all that, but like, what have you seen might be the difference in, let's say, conversion rates from having a Google translated listing to one that's not just checked by a human, but like actually translated by a human?
Right. Well, Google Translate listings, usually they don't get indexed. Sometimes by random mistake with Google, it can happen that you have the keyword just because it's the name of the product and it happens to be a keyword, like let's say like a black phone case, and that's actually a keyword. So you were lucky, and then you can maybe get indexed for that. But a lot of cases, the listings would not get indexed. Like when the famous honeymoon period, when you launch the product in your international marketplace, and then Amazon gives you a little bit more than you deserve. And when they see that you do not deserve that, because your Google translated listing is not performing well, they're going to remove you from page one, and it takes forever to get back if you ever get back. So the Google Translate doesn't get indexed, because people search for products by using keywords, and your product is not going to show up. Or maybe that Google Translate is even going to give you like a too broad keyword or a wrong keyword that your product might be popping up for, which is something even worse to happen to you, to be irrelevant for irrelevant keyword. And that's absolutely wrong. So what I would recommend, if you still don't want to invest in translations, like if you're having PPC campaigns running and if you have someone who's doing that good, or maybe you're doing an amazing job, just take those like top 20 keywords and try to somehow fit them in your listing, in your Google Translate listing, because at least then you'll have some keywords in your listing. Without them, you're just, like a lot of times it can happen that your PPC ad is like on page 1 and your
Mm-hmm.
listing is on like page 6. So, it just it doesn't mean that by having good PPC campaigns, you're going to help your listing to come the way and get ranked on those page 1, and because it's not optimized. But by using someone who understands Amazon, who did keyword research, who did localization, who's native, I think that's something that could totally be a game changer for your listing. And that's something that can be done in a couple of days. I wouldn't recommend changing anything like, last minute, like, I don't know, like 10 days before Christmas. A lot of
Right.
people really love to do that. They love to change absolutely everything. Like, let's change PPC campaigns, let's change ranking, let's change like keywords, everything. And a lot of people do that because they're like in this panic mode, right? But my advice and what I've seen that works in years is that if your campaigns or listing have been performing well throughout the whole year or last 6 months, just leave it as it is, and that's it. Like, don't try to fix anything last minute, because it never does you any good. And just leave it as it is, and figure out a new strategy for, I don't know, Q1 next year. But don't do that. I mean, if you haven't done that, now it's too late. Like, tomorrow is December the 1st. I would never recommend anyone changing something insanely much this week.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, you don't want to change things out in the middle of everything. Now, back to my earlier question though, like, let's say the keywords are indexed. Do you ever see that, like, let's say someone, it's kind of one of those, we're using the example like in English where it just feels a little off. Or like,
Right.
maybe your current listing just feels off to people in Germany or France or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever see that, like, people get a bump in conversion? Let's say maybe instead of 10%, it might be 12% or something like that.
With keywords?
No, like with a properly translated.
I would say that you get the conversion. I mean, we don't do that. We do also with the keywords, so I know how it performs with everything included.
Mhm.
But as I said, like when I was working in this e-commerce in Denmark, we did just the regular translations with like beautifully written listing. It happened to have a couple of keywords every now and then. Whenever you mention the name of the product, it turned out to be a keyword, and this is exactly what kind of make the sales grow a little bit, because people were able to find the product. And then, like, it says that an average shopper has like 8 tabs open, and then when they skim through the listing, whichever sounds kind of more normal to them, or something that's absolutely natural and has a natural language flow, they'll be like, well, okay, like, I would pick this because, if their listing is like that, then maybe their product is high quality. Whereas when they see something which, resembles like Chinglish, it would be like,
Right.
oh my God, like, who knows what this product is about, right? Because, like, if you browse like in the US, if you browse like all the products and you find the Chinglish translation, I mean, I wouldn't buy that product. Like, maybe if it's like the super fantastic one, but I would like to go and to read actually what this product is about, because people are highly unlikely to pay what they don't understand, especially if you're selling like, I don't know, nutrition or supplements or baby products or anything which has some ingredients in it. If I'm not 100% sure that I know that the seller knows what he's talking about, I'm not going to buy this product, because I'm afraid that maybe one of the ingredients is not going to be good for my baby. So people are afraid of not understanding things 100%, and they don't buy the product if they don't understand it. And that I have seen that happen a lot of times. And I remember there was an example of a diaper bag on the French marketplace. And this is also an example where the price doesn't mean basically anything. It's not going to sell your product if you have a poorly written listing. So the bag was the cheapest of all three bags. But once you clicked on it, like it had like this horrible Google Translate, like no sense product, right? And it had like maybe 3 reviews, and it was the cheapest product. And then like the two other like bestsellers were like twice as expensive, but they were beautifully written with all the keywords and everything, and they were bestsellers, and not this like cheap product. The cheap product was like, I mean, maybe like in the like top 20, but it was nowhere near the first two products, and you could clearly see that people were not buying that. Even the price was like twice, like they were paying twice, not maybe it was like, I think it was like 10 euros, and this was like 40 euros. So it was like more than double. So not even that helped that product, but it was obvious that the way it was written, like the Google Translate automated machine translation, made it worse for the product. Definitely. I mean, of course, they probably were not doing a good job with pictures and other stuff, but this was also clearly an indicator of something that was terribly wrong with this product. If you're not going to buy it, if it costs like 30 euros less, and they were quite similar. And I remember the pictures and everything. They had like the same functions. They were like mobile diaper bags. You can like change diapers at the airport. Very functional product and very good product, right? But they were not doing that great on the French marketplace because they had a ridiculous text of the listing.
Yeah, and it just goes back to confidence. And if people are more confident in what you have in your listing, we're always tweaking things in our, US listing and things like that. Hopefully not changing the whole listing right in the middle of Christmas holiday season.
Yeah.
But, back to, the example of if you go from, just to use simple math here, 10% to a 12% conversion rate on the same traffic, you just increased your sales by 20%. And so like just little hinges swing big doors.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more. I just think that there are so many different things you can do, and that doesn't include Google Translate. So Google Translate is like basically like zero effort. Like seriously, like zero effort from you for this product on international marketplace. And like why do you think that other sellers? I mean, if you use Google Translate, then you haven't done pretty much anything. Like, why don't you just run your PPC like campaigns on like automatic and just set it and forget it, right? So that's like when people would do that, people would not have any success. So why do you think that using Google Translate, which is free, would make any sales or would give you any boost in your profit? Sometimes if you have like an amazing bestseller and you're like a big brand, it doesn't really matter how your listing looks like. And you can see all the Adidas and Nikes and like Starbucks and like all of these like big brands, all of their listings are like so poor. They have like one word in every bullet and like zero efforts, and that's it. Like we don't freaking care because we're like Nike and Adidas. But until you are that big, you have to take care of the listing and on the text you're having.
Yes, good points. Good points. Now, one thing I wanted to get your perspective on is I feel like almost daily I'm getting probably multiple emails from Amazon about come to UAE, come to Sweden, come to Netherlands, come to Singapore. For some of these newer marketplaces, what would you recommend would be kind of like the next step, and why is that? I just kind of want to hear your perspective.
Right. Well, of course, it depends on the product.
Yes.
But for instance, what I know about UAE might be very interesting. So for the UAE, you would not need an Arabic translation. You could leave it in English, depending on who you want to target. UAE is really interesting. It's connected, like their cultural ties are connected to the States and political ties. And a lot of expats live there. And they don't have that much choice to choose from. So a lot of expats, they come and go, they rent their apartments. Over there, it's usually, how it's usually done is that they rent an empty apartment, then they furnish it. But the prices in, for instance, Dubai are quite expensive. And a lot of people cannot afford that. People over there, they love brands and stuff, but they also like a good deal. So for instance, if you take a look at UAE and their home decor category, you would say maybe 500 products, and that's it. When you compare it to 5,000 in the US, it's basically nothing.
Hmm.
and only 500 products in home decor, I think that's like your golden ticket in, because a lot of people buy from this home decor category because of their apartments. They are furnishing their apartments like the whole time. And I think this is something where you can get in easily and you basically have no competitors, like probably not any serious competitors. And for a price that's going to be like 10% less than it's in the store, I think you really have some really good chances. So UAE, I think, could be a very, very good marketplace for people selling in home decor.
Oh, gotcha. That's an interesting tip. Now, one thing on that, like the challenge I always get kind of nervous on going into marketplaces outside of North America and Europe is like the Jungle Scouts and the Helium 10s. They never
Right.
seem to work.
Hmm.
So, what would you say? And this, you can shoot from the hip if you'd like how much inventory you start with relative to like what you might send into the US or to the UK or something like that if you're going to try
Well,
out UAE.
I would just always go, like when it comes to UAE, for instance, I would always go with my best seller.
Hmm.
And I would not start super big. I would kind of
Mm.
start small, maybe like, do like 100 pieces and be like,
Hmm.
okay, because they have FBA over there. So it's good. It's not, you don't have to like make a
Third
completely
party
new system or whatever,
logistics,
third party,
yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So they have FBA. I would like start with like 100 pieces, and then like I will see like how it goes. Like if things unfold like within the first week, then I would like ship like 1,000 pieces over there and be like, especially if I'm the home decor, I would start small just to test the market. And then if things are working out very, very good, I would totally ship like a lot of my inventory over there, definitely, because that's something that also like PPC is way cheaper than it is in the States. A lot of people don't even check like how are their competitors doing on foreign marketplaces. A lot of people would have their product being maybe the only product being sold over there, but people don't check. So I always recommend people to go and like to type amazon.de or fr or anywhere else and just see how many competitors you have in that category, and maybe
Mm.
you could be the leader in that category and get ahead of your competitors instead of struggling on the US marketplace. Maybe you could score big in Europe or some other international marketplace. And I would definitely recommend selling in Europe and registering for the pan-European program, because Amazon has recently added more countries to it, and I think they're gonna continue adding new countries. So last year there was the Netherlands. People did not have a lot of sales because PPC was not enrolled, but they've
Hmm.
enrolled a PPC just a month ago. So I think people should see increase in their sales. And very interestingly, they added Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and Sweden is a huge country and it has a very sophisticated e-commerce culture. And a lot of people were very eager to see Amazon finally being available over there. Also, like kind of Sweden got this prestige of all like Scandinavian countries to have like the taste of Amazon first,
Hmm.
and it's potentially a very big marketplace. People are very used to buying online. E-commerce penetration is super high, and it's a very big country, and people are very used to buying online. They're not like Italy that completely changed their lifestyle to online this year. Italy and Spain this year have increased, I think, 14%, which is insane because Germany has increased the e-commerce penetration by 8% only, and everything like when it comes to sales, online retail, everything, it was 14% for Spain and Italy. And these two marketplaces have been very, very small. And usually, when people would expand to international marketplaces, like a couple of years ago, they would do Germany for sure, and then maybe France. But Spain and Italy, they were not that interested. But this year, people started expanding to Spain and Italy. Just like they would tell me, like, I want Spain and Italy only, and that's it. And I've seen a big increase in demand for buying products in Spain and Italy that were not there before. As I said, like these two countries, they were not like didn't have like this specific e-commerce culture like they do in Sweden or Germany, for instance. But they kind of changed and transformed the lifestyle. How they shop, where they shop. They were not used to that, and now they completely are. So I would say that pan-European program is definitely a very, very good project for you next year, definitely. And also we've got some Amazon inside tips that Poland is going to be next to roll out,
Mm.
definitely. Poland is a huge country. It has like 30 million people, and surprisingly, they have over 12,000 online stores, and their marketplace called Allegra is one of the top 10 marketplaces in the world. Just right after Shopee and Tmall, the Singaporean Chinese marketplace. So, it's something that you would not maybe expect from Poland, but they really know what they're doing and they're really deep into e-commerce. So that's going to be very, very interesting. And I'm definitely sure they're going to unroll that in Q1, probably next year. We already had a lot of requests for Poland, definitely. We already have the Polish team. And a lot of people saying that Czech Republic is going to be next. Czech Republic has like the biggest increase in online sales this year. It's 18%, which is like the biggest in whole Europe. But the problem in Czech Republic is that they love to use cash, and they don't use a lot of credit cards. So
You can't use cash over the internet.
Yeah, right. So like it's still. I mean, I'm really interested to see like how that unfolds. But definitely, these two countries should be able, to be in the Pan-European program pretty soon. So when you put that all together, you have like 8 countries. You're in this program for 8. Okay, minus UK, it'll be 7. But you have like all this like 7 new playgrounds you can test your products on. And a lot of times, like the US seller, let's say we work mostly with 7 to 8 figure sellers. They are either people who kind of hit the wall in the US marketplace, or they're just like, let's expand, let's conquer the world, let's do this, right? And usually, like all of them have maybe even bigger revenue than they're making on the US marketplace, just because they don't have that many competitors, and they don't pay as much for PPC clicks as they do on the US marketplace. So it's definitely worth going.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see when the numbers on Pan-European make sense. Like, I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Pan-European up until you get to a certain point. Like, you can always test it out. But to that point, like, if you were just in the UK and you weren't already paying for VAT in another country, so now if you're going to be in mainland Europe, you're going to have to pay for VAT compliance in Germany. But now, pretty much anywhere you store inventory, you have to get VAT registered. And that's where it gets to be a little crazy. But it used to be, it was only like about €1 difference between what the fulfillment rates were to go from, across a border. And Amazon's almost making it punitive. So I would definitely, once you get up and running in Europe, I would do the math and see if it makes sense to do Pan-European. Don't discount it, but I wouldn't go running into it. But always know in the back of your mind that could save you, depending on where your sales are coming from, a good amount definitely. In fees.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would recommend this to, as I said, like a lot of our sellers, they either gonna hit the wall and they don't know how to deal with the competitors, or it's getting too expensive, or and then they kind search and check their new options. But we have tons of like most of our clients are like US based, then number 2 come UK based, and then Germans, and then the rest of the world. So I would say that US sellers are quite interested in expanding to all other international marketplaces. And I think that's the right way to go. Of course, it depends on what you're selling. Maybe it's not a good fit for some of the products, and then you should just stay in the US and build your empire over there. But a lot of sellers who have their best sellers, and those are usually sellers who have like 20 plus ASINs, they would be like, okay, let's take our best sellers and like just take just do a test period, like, and just see how that's gonna work. Because you should not do Pan-European or any other international marketplace if this is going to be, financially very difficult for you to do. So you should not do that before you are like a stable seller and have a solid business.
Yeah, definitely. But once you get up to a certain point, start going into other marketplaces, test it if things make sense. The way I look at it is you can always start simple and then complicate things later if the return on complication, so to speak, makes sense. So for those who are saying to themselves, okay, I either have listings that I want to translate, or I'm thinking about going into, Germany, or doesn't have to be Germany, but some of these other foreign language marketplaces, where would they go to follow you and get more information?
Right. Well, I would recommend to like us on Facebook. It's Wild Tea Translations with an S at the end. We always post new updates about international marketplaces. There are like a lot of really good facts. Sometimes we get really exclusive information about different things, and then we love to update our audience about that.
Mhm.
And we also offer different discounts. Like right now, we're doing the Cyber Monday discount for 10% of all services we're offering. And you can also go and check our page with all the services we're offering at ylt-translations.com.
Okay. And I will make sure to link to that in the show notes. And for those watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description below. So thank you so much, Jana. This was a good conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.